all of me is on the bus. Like every part of who I am is taking up a seat. It's just who's driving in the moment. Who's driving the bus? And sometimes that needs to be angry joy, and sometimes that needs to not be.
Welcome to the Crucible Project Podcast. The Crucible Project is a nonprofit organization committed to creating a world of men and women who live with integrity, grace, and courage, helping them to fulfill their God-given purpose. This podcast will discuss important and sometimes difficult topics while delivering practical life applications with men and women who are currently practicing this work. We are igniting Christ-like change in men and women through experiences of radical honesty and grace.
Welcome back to the Crucible Project Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jess Donovan, and today I'm so excited. I get to have my friend Joy Dunning on here. She is our women's ministry assistant with the Crucible Project, is just awesome on all ends, but I'll introduce you to her. So Joy, how are you today?
Hey, Jess, I'm good. Thanks for having me today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to have you on here. You are awesome in all the ways, as I said, but I won't say any more. I'll let you speak. So go ahead and tell the people, who is Joy Dunning? What does life look like for you right now?
Oof, wow. So I'm currently, a snapshot of my life is I'm sitting at my kitchen table while I have an almost 1-year-old taking a nap upstairs, and my dogs are
Come
like
on.
partitioned outside so I can have control.
So good.
Yes.
So good.
Yeah. So I am up in Green Bay, Wisconsin. So as
Okay.
soon as I open my windows, I will see several inches of snow out there right now. I have 3 kids. 2 are in elementary school, so they're off having St. Patrick's Day preparations today.
Come
It's gonna be
on.
great. And then, yeah, the baby is sleeping. My husband Mark
Wow.
is a Crucible man as well, and he's off at work. And yeah, life is just a day at a time, and it goes faster than I can keep up with.
That is real life. Yeah, and I mean, it's fun to get to watch some of your journey right now, and I mean, you do all the things so well, like
Hardly.
mom life between meetings, and I am single, I do not have kids, and I can barely get to my meetings. Like, I could not picture throwing 3 kids into that mix and executing that all as well as you do. I also love that you were telling me before this meeting that you were like munching down on your Lucky Charms. So just keeping it real for all the mamas out there.
I
So
love that you say munching down because that makes it sound a lot more delicate than it was.
so good. But like, can you actually be delicate with Lucky Charms? I don't
I
think
don't think
that's
so.
possible.
No.
Okay. Yeah. So all good things there. Mom life, Crucible stuff. Your husband is a Crucible man as well.
Mhm.
So tell us a little bit about your journey of getting into soul work. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, so it was a bit of a slow burn. My
Mm,
husband ended up going on his first Crucible Weekend back in 2012, and I
mhm.
was just a couple months pregnant with our first daughter
Wow.
and thought I don't know what I thought. I had no idea what to think or what to expect for him coming
Yeah.
back from that weekend. I had friends saying ahead of time, like, "Yeah, he's going to be really different. It's such a
Wow.
life-changing experience," and I was just terrified because when
Yeah.
you're young and pregnant, and your husband is
Hmm.
going on a weekend that people say he's going to come back so different, it's I'm not sure I'm ready for different. I kind of like him the way he is.
Sure.
But it was a really positive experience for him, and then he
Hmm.
got more and more involved, so he did, like, the 2-year men's program and second
Okay.
level weekends and staffing, and, finally in 2017, I went on a, different women's retreat that had some carpet work and soul work and,
Mm-hmm.
those things, and it was a really good experience, but then I don't wanna say it fell flat, it just I'm not sure that I was at a point where I was really ready to dive in, because I
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
do much with it after that. It was a good experience, and then I moved on. Thankfully, in 2019, when, the emails started coming out that Crucible is introducing a women's retreat,
Yeah.
it was the right timing for me. It worked out that I was able to attend, I think the second weekend that was ever held. and then
Wow.
staff a few weekends after that. And it was the right time for me to finally realize, like, I am ready for this work. I'm hungry for this work. And Lucky
Mhm.
Charms. And so it's been it was reluctant. I was very reluctant for a while. A while being like 5 years. Seeing the
Yeah.
changes in my husband, but just not ready yet. And then
Mm.
even after that introduction, took a little more time, but God
Yeah.
has just been so good through all of that.
Oh man, but I mean, what an encouragement your story can be. And also, I think just helpful
Mm,
for people in relationships where maybe one piece of the partnership is in the work doing it and the other person's scared or like reluctant or fearful of stepping in. And even timing is such a big thing. Like I think that we can often experience the work for ourselves and look to others and go like you need this right now,
mhm.
but it's not always everybody's timing. So I love that you were like, yep, nope, I recognized it wasn't my timing back then. I did this other woman's thing, and though it was good, like it wasn't where you were ready to deep dive in.
Yeah,
And then you had it where you were like, yep, nope, I can deep dive
this is
in
it.
now.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that is a good encouragement for anyone who is in a relationship or maybe has a friend who you're like, come on, do the thing. But like you are in it full send now, which is so cool to see.
Yeah.
And you also got to take time with like, I think I need to wait for this. So that is great. I'm curious, when you finally stepped into the work, what was it that you had discovered about yourself, or maybe like what was significant for you
Mm.
in that experience when you did step in?
Yeah, so that pause after the initial weekend that I did back in 2017, I would attribute that to honestly just I've still struggled through this, but being willing to sit with emotions and
Mm,
feel things. I don't like to feel. I mean, I like to feel happy. When your name is Joy, there's a certain expectation about
yep.
the personality that you show up with, and it's not an act. Like I genuinely
Yeah.
like to be happy. Who doesn't like to be happy?
Hmm.
It's just the other emotions that I don't like that much.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so in 2017, being introduced to some of those emotions and, understanding what anger could look like when it's
Hmm.
not manipulative anger or it's not hurtful
Yeah.
anger, it's just anger. Um,
Hmm.
it was, it was good. It was impactful. I just, kind of wanted to slither away. Like the minute an emotion would show up, it's like, oh, it's there. Okay, I gotta find the weeds. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I did a lot of work just with some counseling in between, and that was really helpful.
Mm.
So then when my weekend came up with Crucible Women in 2019, um, thinking about like what changed, what was different for me then. My kids were a little bit older. In 2017, I had a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old, and and I was not prepared
Yep.
mentally to just be in a place of being willing to look at myself. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, by 2019, I felt like, okay, I'm in a place where I'm ready to deconstruct what I have built around me in order to
Mhm.
take a look at what actually is working and what isn't and be willing to change.
Sure. Yeah, that's so powerful. And I mean, we don't know it until it's in front of us, right? So
Mhm.
like obviously there are these emotions that are there, but we don't recognize, like as you said, like if we grow up knowing this anger that is only passive aggressive or is only manipulative, we are going to see anger and go, skirt, gotta go, like goodbye. Uh but when we're introduced to this healthy anger for the first time, it still can scare the crap out of us
Mhm.
because we go, I know that, and I'm not going to step into that.
Right.
So I'm curious, what did it do for you when you were finally able to sit with those other emotions that you don't like sadness or anger? Like, and what's your relationship like with them now? Like, how do you work with those in your life?
So it is still something that I'm working through. Sitting with sadness is not fun. It's,
Mm-mm.
being willing to say, man, I'm feeling sad, and not saying, where's the Lucky Charms? Or
Yep.
where's, like, where's the constant scrolling on Instagram where I can
Hmm.
just watch videos and tune out of my sadness? Um, Same with anger. Like, oh, I'm feeling angry. What does it look like to process through that anger and try to figure out, what do I want? What is the anger trying to get for me?
Hmm.
Versus just, I'm angry because, my kids aren't listening to me.
Hmm.
That moment of saying, I'm angry because my kids aren't listening to me, but it's because it's beyond just my kids. It's me. I'm not feeling heard. And what does that
Yeah.
remind me
Yeah.
of when I'm not feeling heard? What does that feel like? Oh, I can go back to this. And, it reminds me of when I was a kid and I didn't feel like I was heard at times. And then all
Hmm.
of a sudden I'm looking at my kids who I'm angry at for not listening to me, thinking about when I was a kid, feeling like I wasn't being heard,
Yeah.
and it changes the way that I then approach the situation. Sometimes,
Hmm.
not all the
Hmm.
time. I'm not great
Yeah.
at it still. Everybody's a work in progress. And, ironically, just this past week, I was in with my counselor. I'm a huge believer in proactive counseling for everybody. I think
Come
the world should
on.
have a
Yep.
therapist on speed dial. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I was in with my counselor and she said, I kind of feel like sometimes when I see an emotion show up for you, it's almost like a snake, and not in a manipulative way, but just the second that emotion comes up, bloop, there goes joy. She just slithers right away from it and is hiding it. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, dang it, that's exactly what I struggled with in the past. And the things I find with Crucible are the things I find everywhere else in my life. There's no magic
Yeah.
event or like cure to fix the problems that you have, the things that you struggle with. I'm going to struggle with these things as I go. It's a different
Hmm.
viewpoint, though.
Yeah.
It's that idea of like going up a mountain in a circular motion. Like, you might be
Hmm.
coming around to the same side of the mountain every time that you come, make another lap. You're
Hmm.
higher up. You have a better vantage point on what was below
Hmm.
you, and you can see out farther and you can see different. And so I don't, think that I'll ever be like, ooh, I'm great with all emotions forever. This is fabulous. But recognizing the journey and saying, I'm in it because I want to see it. I want to see this different this time. And next time it comes around, I
Yeah.
want to see it different that time, and be able to continue to grow in that.
I have not heard of that mountain like
Mm,
illustration before, but I really love that because, yeah, I think so often we can revisit these spots that feel like old spots
mm,
and get frustrated, but really we're a few steps up than we were before, and we have this different vantage point. And I also love that you just keep it real of like, yep, I have started my work, I'm doing my work, I am farther along than I was, and I still get stuck, you know? And I echo that too, like even recently meeting with my counselor, I was describing something really hard, and she was like, do you know that you just smiled the entire time you talked about that painful thing? And I was like, gosh darn it. Like, there I was
Sweet
thinking I was
Valley.
working past that. But right,
Yeah.
it comes natural. And as you said, like there are natural pieces of those joy pieces for us.
Hmm.
Um, but it is having to reshape like, okay, is this working? Why did I put this up? Like, obviously we put up these pieces because they are serving us well for some time, but now we get to look and go like, okay, here's how I want to live differently, or step into a better version of me, like keep climbing up the mountain. And what does that look like? It looks like more awareness.
Yeah.
Like, even part of that is, okay, I have this new awareness that when I'm angry, it is because, oh, I see that, as you said, like I am not getting what I want.
Hmm.
And that triggers back to this. And then sometimes we eat that bowl of Lucky Charms. And I think, welcome to a day in the life of a journey,
Yep.
right? So
Exactly.
I appreciate your real talk in that. But I'm curious also, as you have done your work And, you've looked at the pieces that aren't working. I love in Crucible that we also get to discover some of our gold,
Mm.
some of those things that make us who we are. So, what is that for you? Like, what is the gold that you discovered in yourself?
Yeah. So some of the work that I've done is just kind of landing on that idea of worthiness and being beloved. The
Mm,
word beloved has actually been a word that's like a button for me. I
mm,
am not good at reading a lot of women's ministry books
yeah.
because I just get a little too, again, with the emotions, it's a little
Hmm.
too much for me. And I've had
Hmm.
times reading it that I'm like, if you call me dear one more time, I'm going to throw this book at the wall. Um,
Yeah,
and
I see you.
beloved is a word that shows up in so many books written specifically for women. Oh, beloved, if you only knew. I'm like, shut up.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
But the funny thing is that that word has just so resonated with me in my
Hmm.
work with Crucible and finding that
Wow.
gold of I am beloved. And what does that look like? What does that mean for me? Who am I loved by?
Yeah.
I'm loved by the person, the God who knows the very worst of me, the
Hmm.
emotions that I want to hide from, the things I want to slither away from, the parts of my
Hmm.
story that I don't want ever brought to light, not because it's, the worst person in the world, but just the parts of me that I'm like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
love that part of me. So how could anybody else, let alone the person who
Hmm.
created me for more, created me for better, how can he love me in that? And yet
Yeah.
he does. And that's the
Yeah.
beauty of the goal that I've been working through is I don't have to earn it. I don't have to win it. I don't have to perform for it. God's love is just there. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of peace and comfort in that. And I forget that too, you know? It's easy
Hmm.
to fall back into those performance standards of like, well, if I do this or if I do that, or I haven't done this or I haven't done that, so I must be, down a few notches on the scale of how loved I am, but there's no
Hmm.
scale.
Oh, that's so good. And I mean, it is so relevant for so many of us, right? Like taking on that beloved
Mm,
identity is so difficult, especially when we've been taught that we have to work to be beloved or we have to perform in some way. That is so much of my story, too. And I was telling someone recently, like, as I was getting ready to go on my initial weekend, I had this whole plan of how I was going to show up and be the center of attention and be everybody's favorite person. And also that I wouldn't have to do the work that I was showing up to do. Like,
mm,
I'm an idiot. But then I like get there and I'm not able to do any of the performing and I'm not able to come across in the way I want to. And I'm just stuck looking at my like broken self, like all those pieces I don't want anyone else to see.
mm,
And I just felt like God was like, yeah, that was the you I've seen all along. And
right.
good, let's finally like meet you at that place because it's there,
Mm,
right? Like it's genuinely there, whether we try to hide and cover it or not.
yeah.
So,
I heard this with the like going along with the idea of the mountain. I'm an analogy person. My dad's an
me too.
analogy
So bring
person.
it.
that's, that's just how my brain operates. And the mountain analogy was actually compliments of my pastor. He was doing that at
Wow.
church one week a few years back. But
Hmm.
another one that's really resonated with me lately, and it reminds me a lot of my Crucible work um, through. Um, a different organization I'm with as well, we were doing work with a guy named Rob Murray. He has this group called Transformed Leader, and it's been great. And one of the things that Rob shared was the idea of being on a bus
Hmm.
and how when you get on the bus, there's sad joy and there's angry joy and there's selfish joy and there's happy joy, like all the different versions
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
me. And I've had a hard time in the past figuring out how to make sense of all of these different parts of me. And the idea
Mm.
of the bus is that all of me is on the bus. Like every part of who I am is taking up a seat. It's just who's driving in the moment. Who's driving the bus? And sometimes that needs to be angry joy, and sometimes that needs to not be. But like recognizing through my work with Crucible that it's okay that there are these parts of me, that all
Mhm.
of who I am is welcome on the bus, and it's my bus, and
Yeah.
I get to choose where it goes, and I get to
Yeah.
choose who's driving it.
That's so good. It makes me think of the movie Inside Out, right? Where like sadness doesn't get a seat at the control table, so she kind of runs amok, and then that really ends up taking joy along with her,
Good
right?
movie.
So even if we don't let sadness have a seat, she's going to find her way in.
Exactly.
And I love that, like at the dad's control table, like anger is in the head seat,
Mhm.
but he also has the other emotions around him, and the mom has sadness present, and they are working cohesively as a team as they need to. And I think that movie, like, yes, it's for kids, but I remember being like, whoa,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, we
dang.
watch it a lot at our house. I actually went as Joy from Inside Out for Halloween a couple years ago. Had a
Me
blue wig
too.
and a yellow dress, and
Yes, yes,
uh,
come on.
but yeah, it is. I really love that movie too. It's just such an easy way, I think, not only for kids but for adults to be able to visually see in a non-confrontational way.
Mhm.
Okay, there are emotions. They are running the show whether you let them or not. So
Yeah,
let's acknowledge
yeah.
them.
So I love that. That's so good. Now, I would love to talk a little bit about you had mentioned you're a mama to three,
Yeah.
and one of which, your baby girl,
Hmm.
you got to adopt.
Yeah.
So adoption is such a huge thing. I love like stories of adoption.
Hmm.
So would you just share that story with us if you're able to?
Yeah, absolutely. So Mark and I became licensed foster parents in the fall of 2021.
Hmm.
We had talked about adoption for a very long time. He was previously a youth pastor, and at one point, before we ever had biological kids, one of his students ended up being pregnant. And
Wow.
I wanted kids from the very get go. And he was very
Hmm.
like, we'll get there when we get there. We're not in a rush. And so the student ended up pregnant, and one night we were actually out to dinner with friends, and out of the blue he looked at me and he said, "So I feel like God is telling me that we should consider adopting her baby." And I about fell out of my
Wow.
chair. Um,
Wow.
like no joke, it was fork drop, everything stopped.
Uh-huh.
And so that started the conversation, and that ended up not going through. She wanted to raise. She decided to keep her baby, which was great.
Okay.
Um, but
Mhm.
that kind of got it on our radar, and
Hmm.
then we ended up having our biological daughter, who is 10 in just a couple weeks. Mind blowing.
Wow.
Um, and then a few years after that, we had our son. In between, we talked about adoption at that point, but I felt like I wanted one more biological kid, didn't know what that would really look like. Life kind of moved on, and we had two kids, and they were 8 and 5, and things were
Yeah.
almost 9 and 6. And so we got licensed as foster parents, wanting to step into some of that, not really sure what that would look like. And one day last spring, got a call saying, "So, are you interested in a baby?" And I said,
Oh
"Well,
my gosh.
yes." And they said, "We have a baby who was born yesterday. All we knew is it was a girl. We didn't know anything else. But the
Wow.
mom knows that she's not prepared. So mom has signed paperwork and has left the hospital. So she's what's considered a safe haven baby. So surrendered. Thankfully, she was born in the hospital. So she had, the best care from the very get go. But she was less than 18 hours old when we walked into this NICU and saw this tiny little adorable
Oh
baby
my
there,
word.
with the
Yeah.
brightest blue eyes that she still has that matches our other two kids. And Mark and I were just joking this morning that I said something about like her hair, because when it's wet, it's curly, and when it's dry, it's and I was like, "Oh, that's how my hair is too, kind of wavy at times." And he's
Yeah,
like, "No, no,
yeah.
no, we only make kids that look like me." And I was like, "I know. I finally got one that looks like me. I just had to adopt her."
Oh, that's so good.
She has just been one of the greatest gifts of my life. I went from not having a baby to having a 20-minute phone conversation, and now I have a baby. Um, so it was a bit of a whirlwind when she first came on, but she was in the NICU for a couple of weeks. We got to bring her home, and it felt from the very beginning like she's always been a part of our family.
Yeah.
And so now we are less than 10 days away. Oh no, 12 days. Sorry, we're 12 days away from her first birthday, and I'm in total
Wow.
denial about all of it.
Oh my gosh, that's insane. Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, we were having a March weekend last year for Crucible,
Mhm.
and you were one of my assistants for a role, and you're like, Jess, I gotta bounce because I'm about to have a baby that is coming in, and I was like, whoa, okay. So yeah, coming up on a year of that, which is
Yeah,
so wild.
it
Oh my
is.
gosh.
It is. But she just, I mean, my bigger kids light up with her. My 6-year-old son, he still talks about, Mom, when is she going to be a kid? And I'm like, buddy, she is a kid. And he's like, no, no, she's a baby. But like, how much longer until she's a kid? So I'm not quite sure. I think he's waiting for her to get old enough so that he can introduce her to Mario Brothers.
Come
Right
on.
now he has to fight to be Mario versus
Mm,
Luigi, but I think with Brooke,
mhm.
he's just going to say, "Here's your remote control, you're Luigi." So
Come
I think
on.
he's dying for that buddy, but yeah, it's just they. I don't even have the right words to describe what a gift she has been to our whole family.
I love that. And I mean, what a cool story and testimony, especially of like oftentimes those seeds get planted in our hearts so early before whatever it is that we're going to step into, right? And
Hmm.
so it can seem like, yeah, we're going to do this. Oh, wait, no, we're not doing this. I don't know if we're going to do this, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm curious, what was that waiting journey like? Like, was there frustration in it, or was it just like, yeah, maybe this wasn't actually for us? Like, what was that in between time like for you guys?
We had a long wait before we became licensed foster parents. And that was out of just an abundance of caution for our two biological kids,
Hmm.
feeling like we wanted to wait until they were. I mean, everyone makes their own decisions and choices, and I applaud foster families at whatever
Yeah.
age.
Yeah.
We personally felt like we wanted to wait until our biological kids had enough of a vocabulary that
Mm-hmm.
they could tell us if there was an issue,
Mm-hmm.
versus if we started doing foster care when they were like 1 or 2, there'd be less of that opportunity.
Yep.
So we finally took the plunge into getting licensed as foster parents, and even in that though we didn't know what to expect.
Yeah.
We had signed up to actually just do respite care, and so that's like existing foster families. Maybe the parents need to go away for a weekend or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Can't take the kids with them. And so we would then take the foster child, and it would just be a break for the existing foster parents.
Yeah.
So it started that way. But then around Christmas last year, we didn't take any like full placements. We just did a couple weekends here and there for respite. Around Christmas, we started talking about just the longevity of foster care and feeling like we're not at a place where we're ready to take a placement of a child that would be like potentially here for 6 months or a year and a half,
Mm-hmm.
and then gone again. And feeling again that pull of like, it seems like maybe adoption is what we really ultimately want,
Yeah.
but had no idea how that was going to work out. We weren't really interested in doing like the private adoption journey, the
Mm-hmm.
thousands upon thousands of dollars that would cost. And
Yeah.
so it's just this tension that we were living in actually for a couple of months at that point of, do we keep going with foster care? Should we look at adoption? Should we just be good with what we have? What does that look like? And I had said to Mark just a couple weeks before we got the call about Brooke, like, I don't think I can do this either. Like, if we were going to adopt a baby, I would want it to be like now, because our kids are
Mm-hmm.
already 9 and 6 now. I don't want to wait too much longer.
Yeah.
But if we're not going to do this, like, I can't just live in this in between. And so we
Yeah.
were kind of at the point of like, well, we're going to keep processing a little bit, but make a decision soon, and
Yeah.
probably just let it all ride. And then the phone call came.
So wild.
It
Oh
is.
my gosh.
There's things that I look back on and I say, I can now see again that mountain, a
Mm-hmm.
different vantage point. We lived in the Chicago suburbs and Mark took a job at a church in South Carolina that we were
Mm-hmm.
planning on being our forever place. We were there
Yeah.
for less than 6 months and it bombed. And
Mm.
we had bought a house and 2 months later put that house back on the market. Ended up
Yeah.
moving in with my parents in moving into their basement
Mm-hmm.
with our kids. This was in 2017. I mean, it was such a painful time. And even still there's been times where like, man, I don't understand why God allowed that to happen. Like that was
Yeah.
just so
Yeah.
hard. And then after that phone call with Brooke, it was like my perspective on all of that changed. If we hadn't have taken the job at the church in South Carolina, we wouldn't have left the Chicago suburbs where we grew up,
Yeah.
where our family and friends were. And then if that hadn't have fallen apart, we wouldn't have moved in with my parents up here
Yeah.
in Green Bay. And if we weren't in Green Bay, we wouldn't be in this county where we got the phone call about this baby at this
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
And she just seems like such a unique, like perfectly fitted for our family that it's
Oh.
like, hey, there's sweetness in this.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what a cool just story to look at and journey to look back on, right? Of like, it was painful.
Yeah,
Like, pieces were painful. Church hurt stuff is painful. Having to leave, and like, you get so settled on something and then it doesn't go through, and it's like, what in the actual heck, Lord? But I love that you are able to say, like, yeah, I saw it was painful there, and I can see some of why and where God was bringing us. And so to look at that journey is so powerful and cool. And I even love just how everything worked out with this baby specifically for you guys, like how she's such a perfect little fit in your family. And remind me, when you said the numbers of like safe haven babies and how often they actually come about, like what were those statistics again? Because I think that was wild.
yeah, we were told when we were getting licensed not to plan on, like we said, of course we'd be interested in safe haven. They said don't plan on it. We usually only have one like every 10 to 12 years. um, so it's like, okay, it's
Yeah.
not going to happen. And then lo and behold, we get the phone call just like 6 months later, and it doesn't work like that all the time, like this is
No.
it just was a unique time.
Wow. Yeah. Oh my gosh, that is so cool. And even to think like 2017 was when you took that first little step in your soul work journey. And that
Yeah,
was also a season of hurt. And now for God to have done so much in and through you to be prepared, for this baby, for stepping into this. So, what
yeah,
a cool thing to look back on his faithfulness and where you guys are at now, and for y'all to receive that safe haven baby that only comes around
right.
every 10 to 12 years. Like that, it blew my mind when you told me that.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
it was crazy.
So crazy. Cool. So I'm curious, like, what does the journey look like now? Like, what are you looking forward to? Um, yeah, is there anything new on the horizon? And I know that some of that just looks like faithfulness and that every day,
Mhm.
but yeah, what is life like for you currently?
Yeah, so it's a great question. I don't know. Taking, like I said, at the beginning, taking each day one day at a time. um,
Hmm.
Currently, planning for a first birthday party and a 10th
Yeah.
birthday party and a 7th birthday party for my kids, and they all
Come
have
on.
birthdays within 1 month of each other.
Oh,
So it's like,
naturally.
whew, so getting
Always
all of
how
that
it goes.
together, yeah. But then, I don't know. I don't know. I Like you said at the beginning, I am the women's ministry assistant with Crucible. Um,
Yeah.
so I'm loving that role and getting just more and more invested in the work that Crucible is doing and excited
Yeah.
about what God is doing through the organization. And then who knows what's next?
I
I've
love
kind of
that.
had a year of who knew this was going to happen for this year. So I've learned at this point to just kind of put my hands up and go, I don't know what's going to happen next,
Hmm.
but I'm here
Hmm.
for it.
That is a real space to be in.
Yeah.
And I love that, like so often we're like, what's coming? What's next? But you are doing
Mhm.
the thing of being faithful in the everyday,
That's
right? And that matters so much. So, way to be faithful. Like,
I don't
it's
have much of
good.
a choice outside of it. I've learned I don't have a lot of control. So
When in doubt, Lucky Charms, babies. Oh, that's so good. Well, Joy, I have loved our time together. I think it was so rich, and I think people will get so much from it. So thank you, friend.
Thanks, Jess. Thanks for having me.
Of course. All right. We'll see you all next time.
For more information about our weekends, please go to thecrucibleproject.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Rate and review wherever you are listening and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. Also, don't forget to check out myjourney2.com for your free 2-week trial. That's myjourneyto.com. Thank you for listening.